Our world is beautiful, but all across it are the forgotten leftovers of war and military ambition. Nations have poured billions into building cutting-edge machines and formidable infrastructure to dominate battlefields and defend borders. But when things get smooth, the mess often stays behind. These forces mastered war tech, but totally flunked the cleanup. And if you need proof, just stick around. This video dives into some of the most amazing abandoned military objects ever left to rust. Number 15. Saint-Nazaire Submarine Base. The submarine base at Saint-Nazaire wasn't just large, it was engineered for war. It was what scared people off, built by Nazi Germany in occupied France. It became the biggest U-boat facility on the Atlantic coast. Over 1 million cubic feet of concrete went into its creation, and the result was a fortress with walls and ceilings thick enough to shrug off Allied air raids. It was constructed at lightning speed, only 5 months from start to finish in 1941. British forces, however, found a way to hit it hard. HMS Campbelltown, disguised as a German ship, was filled with explosives and rammed straight into the dock. The blast devastated the base, putting it out of commission for the remainder of the war. After the conflict, it lay dormant until the 1980s, when it was partially repurposed as a cultural site called Ville Port. Today, the structure still stands, part museum, part memorial. Its brutal architecture remains untouched by time, a silent witness to the years when submarines slipped in and out beneath the surface of war. Number 14. Ninth Fort Memorial. The Ninth Fort in Kaunas, Lithuania, tells a story that can't be softened or forgotten. Once a Nazi execution site, it became the final resting place for over 45,000 Jews, most from Lithuania, many from other parts of Europe. Today, what stands there isn't just a monument, it's a raw, unfiltered expression of grief and defiance. Sculpted by Lithuanian artist Alfonsas Vincentas Ambraziūnas, the memorial rises 105 feet from the grass, sharp-edged and defiant, just like the memory it holds. It's a brutal silhouette against a calm sky, marked only by a message carved in multiple European languages. This is the place where Nazis and their collaborators killed 45,000 Jews. That line alone weighs more than the stone it's etched into. But in 2011, even that wasn't safe from hate. Vandals scrawled white swastikas on it and left a chilling phrase, Juden raus, Jews out. This isn't just an abandoned military site. It's proof that memory, no matter how painful, must never be erased. All right, guys. Now let's head over to Number 13. The golf ball. Just look at that. Locals called it the golf ball the second they saw it, huge, white, and round, rising from the grasslands of Balado like something dropped from orbit. Built in 1985 as part of NATO's Cold War surveillance network, the SATCCs wasn't just a dome, it was a fortress buried beneath, nuclear-proof. Chemically sealed, ready for anything. At least, that was the pitch. 22 years later, it was sold off with zero fanfare. The military was done with it. What came next was a surprise: Scotland's biggest music festival. Tea in the Park used the grounds year after year until it shut down in 2016. Now the site is on the market again, $1 million, and it's yours. You get reinforced bunkers, Cold War history, and enough concrete to survive a direct hit. It was built to spy, then repurposed for dancing. Now it waits, quiet, sealed, and empty, still standing tall in a field that's heard both secrets and subwoofers. Number 12. Adolf Hitler Lager. Well, this is just totally insane. In Xenoforest stands the decaying shell of a site once handpicked by Hitler himself. Built in 1934 as Lager 3, it quickly became known as Adolf Hitler Lager, after being designated an SS meeting ground. 2 years later, it was transformed into the main training base for the Artillery Schule Jüterbog. German tank crews learned their craft here before being sent to war. After Nazi Germany's collapse, the Soviets took control and shifted its use, first as a temporary holding camp for displaced civilians, then later back into military service. They added unusual features like a zoo and a small cinema to serve stationed families. By the time the Cold War faded, the site had already begun to slip into irrelevance. It was officially closed in 2007. Now most buildings are crumbling. A few will be preserved, but the majority face demolition. It's a quiet place these days. There are no drills, no marches, and no Hitler, just silence settling over a space that once trained armies and carried too many names. Number 11. Tarakanov Fortress. Locals call it the City of Ghosts, and Tarakaniv Fortress or Fort Tarakanivsky earns the name. Hidden near the village of Chop between Kyiv and Lviv, it's almost forgotten unless you know exactly where to turn. Built under Imperial Russia, it was designed to guard the crucial railway between Kyiv and Lviv. But its moment in the spotlight was short-lived. By the end of the 20th century, the grand structure was already in ruins. Tarantino fans might recognize it from Inglourious Basterds, but history here is darker than any movie. During World War II, the Nazis took over the site and allegedly used it for horrific experiments on prisoners of war. Locals still talk about the screams. Rumors linger that the souls of Ukrainian, Russian, and German soldiers never left. The fort stands as a hollow shell now, known more for shadows than strategy. It's not just abandoned. It's haunted by memory, by war, by silence that never settled. Number 10. Goli Otok Prison. Off the Croatian coast, Goli Otok is a rocky island that once held one of Yugoslavia's most notorious prisons. During Tito's rule, this secret facility housed political prisoners, not for being anti-communist, but for being too pro-Soviet. In a strange twist, the prison punished those loyal to Stalin after Tito's split from the USSR. Many of its inmates were intellectuals, writers, and philosophers, guys seen as ideological threats. The island had been used by Austro-Hungarian forces during World War I to hold Russian prisoners, but Tito turned it into a high-security fortress of silence and control. Few Yugoslavians even knew it existed. Though conditions were harsh, executions were rare. Many of those who survived later shared their experiences through books and films. The prison was eventually shut down in 1988, and the island remains mostly deserted. Today, its broken buildings echo with the memories of what was once unspoken. The rust, the ruins, and the shoreline all carry the weight of a past that still casts a long shadow. Number 9. Balaclava Submarine Base. The waters around Sevastopol have long carried the weight of military legacy, from the charge of the Light Brigade to Cold War tension. But nothing left a mark quite like the massive submarine base built into the cliffs of Balaclava. Constructed during a time when the fear of nuclear war felt urgent, this underground facility wasn't just a dock, it was a fortress. Its thick, reinforced walls shielded not only submarines but also a secret stash of nuclear warheads and supplies meant to keep the nearby population alive for years if war broke out. After the Cold War ended and the Soviet Union collapsed, the base was abandoned in 1993. Part of it is now a museum, but the rest remains sealed in silence. Whether it would have withstood a full nuclear blast is anyone's guess, but we're lucky that was never put to the test. It was built to survive the unthinkable. Now it sits, empty, as proof of just how real that threat once felt. Number 8. Stompy. There's a tank parked in South London with its gun pointed directly at the local council's office, and it's been there for decades. Not as a threat, but as a joke. The tank, nicknamed Stompy, is a Soviet T-34 that once rolled through Prague during the 1968 Spring Uprising. Today, it's a piece of passive, aggressive street art. In 1995, property owner Russell Gray had a development plan rejected by the council. Annoyed, he submitted a new application, this time to install a tank. The council thought he meant septic, not military, and signed off. Russell didn't waste time. He bought a T-34 from a film crew and had it delivered to the site, turret angled directly at City Hall. Officials were furious, but powerless. The paperwork said tank. Over the years, graffiti artists have turned Stompy into a public canvas. Sometimes pink, sometimes camo, and sometimes NHS blue. It's always saying something without firing a single shot. Not many machines win wars after they retire. What do you think about this? Number 7. Civil War pillboxes. Madrid's Parque del Oeste is peaceful today, but just under the surface, war still whispers. Tucked within the trees are 3 concrete Civil War-era pillboxes, sturdy, scarred, and staring forever toward the Aravaca district. They were part of Franco's desperate push to hold the city, built by Unit 7 of the National Sappers during one of the war's most brutal campaigns. 15 of these bunkers once dotted the area, but only these 3 survived the post-war demolition spree. Their thick, angled walls still show the gun embrasures, and carved markings from their creators haven't faded. Oddly, they were never torn down. No one on Mother Earth knows why. Behind them once stood a prison. Today it's the Spanish Air Force's headquarters. The irony is sharp. Franco's troops never pushed deeper into the capital than these structures, but for many in Madrid they got far too close. The pillboxes aren't protected, fenced, or featured in guidebooks. They're just there, quiet witnesses to a battle that reshaped a nation. Number 6. Fort Ord. Fort Ord once stood proud on California's Monterey Bay, often dubbed the most scenic army base in the U.S. But now, it's more rust and weeds than ranks and discipline. Opened in 1917, it was a sprawling 45-square-mile training ground, packed with forests, dunes, and a whole lot of firepower. Over the years, tens of thousands of soldiers passed through its gates, heading off to conflicts in Korea and Vietnam. At its peak, it housed 50,000 troops at once. But in 1988, the Base Realignment and Closure Commission pulled the plug, citing serious environmental issues. Petroleum leaked from storage tanks, and the grounds were dotted with landmines. It officially shut down in 1994, but the cleanup took another decade. Today, parts of Fort Ord are open as a national monument, but don't expect a pretty tourist attraction. It's raw, cracked, and soaked in history. You're not just looking at buildings, you're looking at the bones of an era that's gone, but not forgotten. Number 5. Camp Hero. Camp Hero doesn't look like much from a distance, just an old radar tower sitting quietly on the edge of Long Island. But ask around and you'll hear a very different story. Some say this wasn't just a Cold War outpost. They claim it was the site of secret experiments, psychic warfare, mind control, even time travel. The kind of stuff usually reserved for sci-fi shows like Stranger Things, which some believe drew inspiration from what supposedly happened here. The official story is simple. Radar base, decommissioned, sealed, but for decades, conspiracy theories have surrounded the place. A man named Preston Nichols even published a book claiming he was one of the test subjects. The government, of course, denied it all. Still, they've never opened the underground sections. Even now, tourists are only allowed to walk the grounds. Whatever's left below the surface, sealed labs or just empty concrete, remains off limits. Whether truth or folklore, Camp Hero keeps people talking. And maybe that's part of the design. It's awesome. Number 4. Plokštines Missile Base. Well, this thing is super crazy. Cold War strategy wasn't about bold displays. It thrived on secrets, like the Plokštines missile base buried beneath Lithuanian soil. From this hidden Soviet site, R-12 nuclear missiles could have hit Britain or any major Western European city in minutes. Western intelligence didn't even know it existed until 1978, long after the USSR had removed the weapons and abandoned the base. Originally constructed in 1959, the facility helped develop the R-12, the same missile later placed in Cuba during the 1962 missile crisis. This wasn't just another launch site, it was a chess piece in the world's tensest geopolitical standoff. Most of the base was underground, buried nearly 100 feet deep, accessible only through maze-like tunnels. Today it stands empty and eerie, a reminder of how close the world once came to collapse. The silence here isn't peaceful, It's loaded with what-ifs and near misses. It's proof that some of the most powerful weapons in history never even had to be fired to terrify the world. Number 3. Hiiumaa Military Ruins. On Estonia's western edge, the winds whipped through half-collapsed bunkers and rusted watchtowers like they never left. This stretch of coastline on Hiiumaa Island was once a Soviet stronghold. After World War II, it was packed with garrisons, fire towers, radar posts, everything needed to keep a close eye on NATO movements. When the Red Army pulled out, they didn't tear it down. Estonia decided to keep it, calling it a memorial, not a ruin. Some structures still stand strong. Others have cracked and splintered under decades of storms. There's no admission fee, no fence, and no polished plaques, just open access to what remains. A nearby former radar station now serves as a museum, but the real experience is outside, among the ruins themselves. The chill in the air, the overgrowth, the sense that people once stood watch here in the freezing dark, that's what lingers. This isn't a war exhibit, it's a place that never pretends history was clean or easy. Number 2. SS Mahino Wreck. Along the coast of Fraser Island, the rusted shell of the SS Mahino rests in the sand, broken, but still intact enough to catch the wind like a ghost ship. Originally launched as a luxury liner in 1905, the Mahino carried wealthy travelers across the Tasman Sea. When World War I broke out, it was repurposed as a hospital ship, transporting wounded soldiers from France to England. After the war, she returned to Australia for civilian duty. In 1935, her fate changed again. She was sold to a shipbreaker in Japan. But while being towed, a cyclone snapped her tow line and left her adrift. By pure chance, the ship beached on Fraser Island with 8 crewmen on board. They all survived, but the Mahino was beyond saving. Over the years, the wreck has weakened dramatically. Though its hull remains surprisingly intact, it's too fragile to allow visitors. Today, it's off-limits, a skeletal monument to a vessel that lived through war, weather, and adrift into history. Number 1. Fort Carroll. Built straight into the middle of the Patapsco River, Fort Carroll was always more ambition than accomplishment. Construction started in 1848 with plans for over 200 cannons. But by the time the Civil War broke out, only 5 were ready. 13 more were scrambled in last-minute panic, but the place never saw serious action. The government tried to revive it for the Spanish-American War in 1898, then again as a firing range during World War II. None of it stuck. In 1958, a developer bought the whole artificial island, hoping to do something, anything, with it. Local authorities shot it down. What's left today is a sun-bleached, vine-covered shell. No guards, no tourists, just seagulls and marine life are claiming the structure piece by piece. Carroll was supposed to be a cornerstone of Baltimore's harbor defense. Instead, it's a forgotten concrete ring slowly sinking into the water, remembered more for its failure to matter than anything it ever actually did. Well, we really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.